Early modern Egypt. Well, it really starts in 1516 when the Ottomans started invading Mamluk Egypt. It took them a year to subdue the Mamluks. So the Ottomans became the ruler of Egypt between 1517 and 1867, 350 years. So that was all Egypt became part of the Ottoman Empire. The conqueror was Sultan Selim I, and in 1517 ACE, after he conquered Egypt, he gave the Mamluks semi-autonomy. He appointed them as regional and district governors. The Mamluk emirs governed 12 different districts in Egypt. The overall governor of Egypt reported to Istanbul. In 1798, Napoleon landed with an army in Egypt. His objectives were to disrupt the trade link for Britain and its vital link with India for spices, and also to interfere in the affairs of Syria and Palestine. As well as bringing an army with him, he brought lots of scientists. This was the first scientific survey on Egypt itself. After 3 years of battles, and there were lots of them in Syria, Palestine and Egypt, the French decided to capitulate from Egypt and withdrew in 1801. So 3 years of utter disruption. The legacy that the French got out of this and the rest of the archaeology community was the Description de l'Egypte. It was a snapshot of Egypt in the 18th and 19th centuries. 160 civilian scholars went on this trip, 2,000 artists and 400 engravers. So it was no small expedition. So why did Napoleon take all these scientists with him? Well, I think he wanted to be written into Egypt's legacy. The description contained 4 themes. There was ancient Egypt, modern Egypt, the natural environment of Egypt, and the topography of Egypt. Just to let you know that he did have maps of Syria and Palestine made as well. So it had a military aspect to it. There were 2 editions. The first edition took 20 years to publish. It was massive. When the scholars were ejected from Egypt, they went back to France with all their findings, and the description was printed in France. In 1805, Muhammad Ali declared war on the Ottoman Turks. So it was the Ottoman Turks, the Egyptian Mamluks and the Albanian Mamluks. By 1807, Muhammad Ali had created his own dynastical rule in Egypt. He seized Egypt in 1805 ACE. Muhammad Ali nationalised all of the agricultural land. He introduced the cotton crop in Egypt in 1822. Egypt became the 5th biggest producer of cotton in the world. Muhammad Ali died in 1848 and was succeeded by Abbas I. In 1854, he was succeeded by Said Pasha. Now, Said Pasha is the one who got the loan to dig the Suez Canal. He didn't want to. He was being egged on by Britain and France to build the Suez Canal. His job was to create the workforce, and they paid for the materials. Well, they loaned him the money to pay for the materials, a huge amount of money. The last ruler was Ismail the Magnificent in 1863 to 1879. The country was bankrupt by that time. Britain and France they're not the best people to borrow money from, okay? Don't do a deal with these 2 countries, and I'm British, because in those days the deal was in favour of the lenders. Egypt was full of corruption and the people were in serious poverty. In 1879 there was dual control was established between France, Britain, and the Caliphate of Egypt. The Caliphate of Egypt was created in 1914. The Caliphate of Egypt was a tribute-paying state to the Ottoman Empire. Now we got some really bad behaviour. In 1882, Britain landed troops in Egypt with no legal status to do so and not part of the British Empire. They did this, and they said, to protect their interests in the Suez Canal, but their troops were all over Egypt. In 1914, the Ottoman Empire joined the Germans in the First World War. Britain announced that Egypt was now a protective of Great Britain. In 1922, there was a unilateral declaration of independence. Sultan Farouk I declared himself King of Egypt. There was an Anglo-Egyptian Treaty in 1936. Britain had the right to station troops in Egypt to defend the Suez Canal. I think this was bad behaviour, but there we go. In 1919, there was a peace conference in Paris. Here we are, bad behaviour coming up. And the Wafd Party, an Egyptian liberal party in Egypt, went along to the conference demanding independence for home rule. They were all arrested and imprisoned on the island of Malta. That's bad behaviour, Britain. King Farouk died in 1936. He was succeeded by his son, who became King Farouk, and unfortunately he was aged 16. Poor guy. Moving in, you got British troops in Egypt. The end of the Second World War, it's between the wars, so he had no choice but to sign the Anglo-Egyptian Treaty in 1936. And he did it with a heavy heart. The problem was that the Italians were trying to expand through Libya, and he was worried of an Italian invasion into Egypt. After the Second World War, at least Britain withdrew their troops from Egypt just to the Suez Canal to protect the canal. Modern Egypt. 1952, an Egyptian revolution happened in Egypt on the 23rd of July. The free officer movement, so when Britain stationed troops in Egypt, they trained Egyptians and created an officer corps within this Egyptian army. And it was in this free officer movement that two generals, Mohammed Naguib, overthrew King Farouk, tossed out the 1953 constitution and declared Egypt as a republic. In 1954, the Muslim Brotherhood organisation was suppressed by President Naguib. Naguib himself was arrested and was replaced with Gamal Nasser. In 2014, there was a second election, and Abdel El-Sisi was elected as Egypt's sixth president, which brings us up to date. If you liked the content, it's just pointing the way. What's important is Egypt got home rule, and now they can determine their destiny. They've been home rule for 60 plus years. They are today an amazing people, to put up with all the burdens that they had to put up with from the time of Nectanebo's time to the 21st century is amazing. They survived all that brutality and that lack of investment in their infrastructure, their country, and they came out of it the other side. And I certainly wish them well, because it just shows the character that they had from the ancient ancestors to survive and carry on. So if you like this video, press the subscribe button, thumbs up, and I'll see you soon.